Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to talk again about my Super Soco bike. In my last review I talked a little bit more about why I bought the bike, and now I would like to talk a little bit more about some of the functionality of the bike, show some details, and talk a little bit more about how the drive is with this bike. Dashboard. Now, when you start up, you push the start button, of course, and it makes this lovely little sound like a toy music box or something like that. It's not really manly, but anyway, it doesn't really matter. It shows you the mode that you're in, 1, 2, or 3. It shows you the speed. It shows you how much power you're using. It shows you the status of the battery pack. It shows you the trip length, and it shows you the overall distance that you have driven with the bike. It appears that there is a function for time on the display, but it's not on my display, and I would like to have that. That's basically the only thing I'm missing. Talking about the screen, there's this little red button on your steering wheel, or on your handlebars, however you want to call them, and it's very easy to just gently brush it, just very gently brush against the red button. It happened to me several times already. When you're accelerating and then reducing your speed and then accelerating again, for example, you just lightly brush against the red button and the bike dies. And you're like, what's happening? And then when you look on the screen, you will see this very small P appearing, which stands for park. So the little red button next to the accelerator actually puts in park and shuts down the bike, which is very, very annoying. So let's talk about the switches. There are basically 3 modes on this bike. The mode 1 basically is the eco mode, and it will allow you to drive about 30 kilometers per hour, 25 to 30 kilometers per hour. And basically there are basically 2 uses I have for it. One is if you are traveling with someone on a bicycle, then it's quite a nice speed, so you can drive together. That's one. And 2, if you are really trying to save your battery, especially if you are like me needing to go uphill, then it can be quite useful to accelerate up the hill to a low speed and then maintaining that low speed, instead of letting the bike try and accelerate uphill, using a lot more power. That's basically the. But then that's if I would use mode 1 for that. That's really when my battery is basically empty. Normally I would use mode 2 for that. So mode 2 goes up to 40 kilometers per hour, and it's just a good alternative when your battery is low. I used this several times for going uphill when my battery was low. So then the bike just goes up to 40 kilometers per hour and it stays there, and it doesn't try to keep accelerating towards 50 kilometers an hour. So that saves a lot of power. And also when my battery is almost drained, then I switch to this, so then I can get a couple of extra miles out of it. Then mode 3 is basically your daily driver mode, and it allows you to drive 50 kilometers per hour. I don't really feel that much difference in acceleration between the modes. It's just the top speed that's limited, in my opinion. For those of you who don't know, this bike can actually go 70 kilometers per hour. However, in the Netherlands, since it's a moped, it's only allowed to go 50. But apparently it's quite easy to do some trick with the accelerator and the brake to boost the performance up to 70 kilometers per hour in that mode that you are in at that point in time. it can be of some interest to somebody maybe, but I just think yeah, on a bicycle lane it's fast enough like this, and I don't want to get fined for driving too quickly, and also my battery life is right where I need it, so yeah, going and driving faster will not help that, so I keep it as it is. So talking about the lights, all lights are LED. The rear lights and the front lights look amazing. I think it's really well designed, and also the light itself. I mean, when you're driving in the dark, and you know, I drive this thing year round, so I drive in the dark, I drive in the rain, I drive in the wet, and in the dry, and in the sun, and so visibility for me is important. Being seen is important by other users of the road, so they don't kill me. But also to be able to see in the dark at night is very nice. The normal lights are good, could be a little bit better, and high beam is also very nice. And for the speed that you're driving, and for yeah, it's nice. It's just very nice driving with the lights that are on there. And because the rear lights are going around basically the rear seat. For quite a big part. I think the lights are quite visible from the side as well. Looking at the space underneath basically where normally the tank will be, you can store 2 batteries in there, and there's this little plastic tray on top of it, and yeah, you can store some things there. The good thing I have heard is that they actually have a split cable to have power on both batteries, and when you have 2 batteries you can drain both batteries simultaneously. I believe that in the earlier versions you needed to manually switch between the first and the second battery, and now with a splitter you can actually run the first and the second battery simultaneously. I have only 1 battery, so I have no personal experience with this. The space underneath is very small. Apparently you can take the seat off by twisting the key the other way around, and there's a small toolbox. So as you can see from my YouTube channel, I am a car guy, so that means that I don't leave anything stock. So with this bike again, did I leave it stock? I don't think so. So first thing, I thought that the mirrors were horrible. They look completely ridiculous. So I went to Wish and bought me some small Harley Davidson replica bike mirrors with some adapters, and they fit quite nicely. Again, I'm very tall, as I mentioned in the first video, so getting the right adjustment to be able to look a lot past myself is quite difficult. But I mean, you only basically need the left side, and the vision out of the left mirror is good. And other modifications, well, I have bought some stickers for it, but I haven't had time to do anything with it. I removed the plastic tray above the battery because it's always in the way, and I removed the rear foot supports for rear passenger because I'm so tall, there's nobody gonna sit behind me. So all in all, I took off around a kilo or something like that. And yeah, this bike is actually really light, and that's something that's quite a big advantage, because it's very stable in the wind, which I think is very important, and it's a very good feature of this bike. When the battery is empty, then and it happened to me twice now, where I have to push the bike. Now if your bike weighs 120 kilograms and you have to push it for 3 kilometers, for example, then you're completely dead. Now this bike only weighs, let's say, 75-80 kilograms, so then you know, it's not ideal, of course, but I mean, it's doable. And you know, if you have to mention the biggest difference basically between an electric bicycle and this electric bike, is that when your battery on your electric bicycle is empty, you can still cycle. But when the battery of your electric bike dies, you need to walk. Charging. Now charging in itself is not difficult, and it takes, I think, about 5 hours to fill the battery up from about 20% to 100%. There's only one thing that you really need to take care of when charging, and that is that you put it first in the bike and secondly in the wall contact. And well, there's just a little side note, and that is that your charging cable consists of two parts, and when you're running around with the charging cable, it is possible that it can fall out. So if either of those two things go wrong, then you end up with a bike that is not charged. It happened to me 2 times or something like that, and yeah, so it can happen. I want to quickly go on to clothing. For the summertime, I always wear long jeans on the bike, and I always wear either a thin leather jacket when it's extremely warm, or a thick jeans type jacket or thick leather jacket, just to, if you fall, then you want to be protected. And in the wintertime, let's say everything below 10 degrees, then you really need to have a motorbike suit with a winter package inside, winter clothing layers inside. My brother has a motorbike, and he had a suit that I could borrow for the wintertime, since he's not driving then with his motorbike, and so that works out perfect. And when you go really against, let's say the 0 degrees and -1, -2, -4, then I would advise you to also wear a balaclava, because the air coming into your helmet is extremely cold. So yeah, you should really think about wearing a balaclava. And for the summer, I have thin gloves that I wear with knuckle protection on it, and for the winter I have thick motorcycle gloves, because it's very annoying to be cold on a motorbike, especially with a cold back or a cold neck. So I also wear a scarf always, because even when it's hot, first of all, your chin is exposed, or your throat is exposed. So if a small bee or something flies and hits your throat at 50 kilometers an hour, it hurts a lot. And also, yeah, I personally get neck pain when I don't do that. So yeah, a scarf is something I always wear. Yeah, you can interpret this in several different ways. First of all, the brakes. The brakes are good, very good, and yeah, it really gives confidence to the bike. So that's one part of safety. The other part is visibility. Well, as I mentioned earlier on in this video, the lights are good. And the other part of safety I actually want to talk about is the bike standard has an alarm system, which you have with a remote controller, so you can just yeah, like a car with central locking, lock the bike, and if somebody steals it, and especially when you collapse the support to keep it standing upright, then the alarm goes off, and when the bike vibrates, the alarm goes off. Another safety feature that you can use is at the front wheel, at the chassis mount and the front fork, there is actually also a locking pin to lock the steering of the bike, so that, yeah, if you want to steal it, you can only drive in circles, or you have to lift it all the way to whatever. And of course, you can put either a small lock on the front disc brake, or you can put a lock through the rear wheel. And yeah, I have a big chain for the rear wheel, and that's, even though there's an electric motor in the rear wheel, it's fine to put a chain through. There's enough space in the wheel. And the advantage of not having a second battery is that the lock can easily fit inside yeah, the storage compartment in the tank. Cool moments. Yeah, I have had several. I will talk to my number one cool moment, and that is that at the start of autumn and the leaves were starting to fall, it was getting dark, I was driving to work, and I was driving through the forest, and let's say 25 meters in front of me, a deer just stepped onto the road and started walking in the direction I was going as well. So it didn't see me and it didn't hear me, and that's the cool thing, of course, about electric bikes. They're quite difficult to hear, and when you drive through nature, that's a good thing, in my opinion. So it didn't hear me and didn't notice me, and I was driving up to it, and then when I was about 5-6 meters away, it started noticing me, and it started to run, but it couldn't go into the forest because it was quite a deep trench next to the road. So it had to keep on walking, and I was gaining on it, and then there was an opportunity to jump into the woods, and it did. So that was really cool. I got really close. Same thing happened to me when I was driving home. There was I think it was a buzzard or a hawk. It came flying out of the woods, preparing to land on a post right by the road. And so from the corner of my eye, I see this bird with its claws fully out, ready to land on the pole, coming towards me, and when it was getting like a meter away from me, it was that close. It started flapping its wings. Oh shit, this is an emergency stop, I have to abort mission. And that was really cool. And then it flew back into the woods. So and several times there were like pheasants or hares or rabbits on the road, and it didn't notice me. So that's cool. One of the awkward things I also like to mention is that I was driving on the bicycle lane, and this guy with a horse was walking in front of me. So I drove towards it, and yeah, of course I was driving faster than the horse was walking. And when I got there, I was like, yeah, shit, what do I do now? Because if I honk my horn, the horse might scare and run off or do something weird. So I just sat there waiting, and luckily the horse noticed me and started looking around and started acting a little bit nervous. And so after 10 seconds or so, the guy on the horse, he noticed that, okay, something is wrong, let's look around. And then he saw me, and then he pulled the horse into the side of the road so I could pass them. Now, about the looks. Do I get looks on this bike? Yes, quite a lot actually. One of the things is that, for example, someone is standing at the light and I put my bike next to them and they're like, that's quiet, what is that? That's cool. Or they're like, hey, where's the exhaust? I don't see an exhaust anywhere. What's this? Or they're just like, oh, that's a cool thing, and maybe they think, wow, that's a big dude on a small bike. That's also possible. But yeah, you definitely get a lot of looks from cyclists who are looking at your bike, and they're like, okay, that's nice, quiet, and yeah. So yeah, you get a lot of looks. So yeah. I don't really care about that part, but I mean, it's sometimes funny how people look at the bike and trying to see what it is. Yeah. Driving. Well, I spoke about the driving modes, but I want to talk a little bit about the driving itself. Now, driving this bike is really, really nice because it's quiet, it's serene, it's really nice driving it. It's fast, and the big difference between a normal scooter and this thing is that it has instant acceleration, and that's a blessing, and it's not. It's kind of a curse as well as some instances. And furthermore, the thing is a little bit that because it's electric, there's no feel to the throttle, and that makes it worse in a sort of way. So I will give some examples. I live in a street where it's 30 kilometers per hour, and of course this bike drives 50 kilometers per hour on the speedometer. So when I drive in my street, I always drive 30 or 32 or whatever, but 30. Um, but there are also some bumps. So when I'm trying to keep the bike at 30 kilometers an hour, which is a challenge on its own, and then you drive over a bump, you get this instant acceleration because you ever so slightly twist the throttle, and it gives this whip in your neck. So it's because it's a short, violent burst. I mean, it's not like a Lamborghini or Ferrari, but it's just because it's so instant and such a small burst. It really takes you back. And it's the same, for example, if you have to cross a road and there's a piece in the center of the road where you can stop. You give it a small acceleration, then you stop and give it a small acceleration to go in between through the traffic. And that small acceleration when you're rolling and just want to give it a little bit of gas, it's so violent and so quick that it takes you a little bit off guard. And it's the same, for example, if you come to a corner, you slow down and then you want to accelerate out of the corner. It's quite difficult to get a very smooth acceleration out of the corner. It's like bam, and it goes. And yeah, so that's something you need to be wary of. It's you learn as you go. It's the same when you get on the bike. You need to learn to get a little bit more stable. And it's the same with the throttle response in general. I'm very comfortable now with it, and you have to drive a little bit smoothly, and yeah, but that's fine. I hope that you like this review part 2 with a little bit more detail in it, and if you do, please give it a thumbs up and comment, and if you like to subscribe, please do that as well. Thank you for watching, and yeah, I hope you can tell from my review that I'm very fond of my bike and I really like it. There are, of course, with everything, as always, there are some things I don't like, but in general I'm very happy with the bike. And yeah, let me know what you think, and thank you for watching.